what does the chronicler tell us about the tribes of West Manasseh and Ephraim? This is the question we seek to answer today as we continue our verse-by-verse study of the book of 1 Chronicles on Walking Through the Bible.
Glory of His cross.
Today we're going to be discussing 1 Chronicles chapter 7, verses 14 to 29. But before we do that, let's read the passage. If you have a Bible with you, you can turn to 1 Chronicles chapter 7, verse 14. If you don't have a Bible, don't worry. Just follow along with us on the screen. The version that we'll be reading from is the New King James Version. So, 1 Chronicles chapter 7, beginning at verse 14. The descendants of Manasseh, his Syrian concubine, bore him Machir, the father of Gilead, the father of Asriel. Machir took as his wife the sister of Hupam and Shupam, whose name was Maacah. The name of Gilead's grandson was Zelophehad, but Zelophehad begot only daughters. Maacah, the wife of Machir, bore a son, and she called his name Peresh. The name of his brother was Sheresh, and his sons were Ulam and Racham. The sons of Ulam was Bedan. These were the descendants of Gilead, the son of Machir, the son of Manasseh. His sister Hammoleketh bore Ishbod, Bezer, and Mela. And the sons of Shemida were Ahian, Shechem, Lichi, and Anaim. The sons of Ephraim were Shutuliah, Bered his son, Tahath his son, Eladah his son, Tahath his son, Zadab his son, Shutuliah his son, Ezer, and Eliad. The men of Gath who were born in the land killed them because they came down to take away their cattle. Then Ephraim their father mourned many days, and his brethren came to comfort him. And when he went into his wife, she conceived and bore a son, and he called his name Beriah, because tragedy had come upon his house. Now his daughter was Shirah, who built Lower and Upper Bethoron, and Uzzen Shirah. And Repha was his son, as well as Reseph, and Tela his son, Tahan his son, Laadin his son, Maad his son, Elishama his son, Nun his son, and Joshua his son. Now their possessions and dwelling places were Bethel and its towns, to the east Naran, to the west Gezer and its towns, and Shechem and its towns, as far as Aiah and its towns, and the borders of the children of Manasseh were Bethshean and its towns, Taanach and its towns, Megiddo and its towns, Dor and its towns. In these dwelt the children of Joseph, the son of Israel. Over the last many lessons, we have been looking at the genealogies of the nation of Israel. As we have seen thus far, Israel kept genealogies much different than we do, for we have seen throughout this text that generations have been skipped, that names have different spellings, and later we had copyist errors, which have made it difficult for us to compare families from different genealogical lists elsewhere in Scripture. However, reconciling these passages are not impossible. For instance, names having different spellings should be expected because Genesis and Numbers were written about almost 1,000 years apart from what we have here in the Chronicler, meaning the language would have changed. Copyist errors do happen, but they are usually pretty easy to spot and do not mean the original had the error. And since no doctrine of Scripture or prophecy of Scripture is contingent on the suspected scribal errors in these lists, these are not proof against inspiration, nor are they mandatory that we reconcile them completely in order to go to heaven. These lists were important to Israel at the time, but they also had other lists from non-inspired sources with which to consult for more details, with the chronicler merely giving Israel an overview of their history. And of course, skipped generations are pretty easy to spot, as the word beget has a much broader meaning at that time than it does today. Benjamin's genealogies were hard to reconcile because the tribe was almost wiped out in the period of the Judges, creating a bottleneck through whom all of Benjamin must have descended from, with some families going extinct. We have a similar situation with the tribes of Ephraim and Manasseh, though not for the same reason. The reason we have trouble with these two tribes is because the heads of these tribes were born to Joseph in Egypt, and therefore we don't have the names of their children until we get to the book of Numbers, some 400 years later. And as such, spotting skip generations is a little more difficult when comparing Numbers to 1 Chronicles. From the book of Numbers, it appears that Manasseh only had one son, whose name was Machir, from which the entire tribe is descended. Machir was the father of Gilead, though Hupim and Shupim's sister was of the tribe of Benjamin. Gilead was who was the father of Asriel. It was the part of the family of Gilead that received land east of the Jordan. However, another part of Gilead's family, and that of his sister Hammoleketh, received land west of the Jordan. From Joshua 17, verses 2 to 4, we read, "And there was a lot for the rest of the children of Manasseh according to their families. For the children of Abiezer, the children of Helak, the children of Asriel, the children of Shechem, and the children of Hepha, and the children of Shemida. These were the male children of Manasseh, the son of Joseph, according to their families." Note here in Joshua that again, these are children of these people who received this land, meaning their descendants. From 1 Chronicles 7, we have read of 5 of the 6 sons who received land west of the Jordan: Asriel, Abiezer, Hepher, who was the father of Zelophehad, Shemida, and Shechem. Helak is not mentioned by name, though it is possible that he is one of those who had a different name. We just don't know. What of these other names that are not mentioned in Numbers or Joshua? Well, it is likely that they don't grow to a size to have large families, and thus they were not noted. It is interesting to see the daughters of Zelophehad mentioned, because again, their account in Numbers 27 gives rise to daughters being able to inherit their father's estate if they do not have any brothers, so long as they marry within their tribe. Piecing all of these descendants of Manasseh together can make your head spin a little. So we'll leave it at that, noting that many of these people inherited land west of the Jordan, just north of Ephraim and south of Issachar, Zebulun, and Asher. Speaking of Ephraim, if you thought Manasseh was hard, Ephraim is even harder. Again, Ephraim was born in Egypt, and so we have no record of his sons from Genesis, but we do have a record from Numbers, namely Numbers 26, verses 35 to 37. These are the sons of Ephraim according to their families: of Shetuliah, the sons of the Shuathlites; of Becher, the family of the Becherites; of Tahan, the family of the Tahanites. And these are the sons of Shutilah; of Eran, the family of the Eranites. These are the families of the sons of Ephraim according to those who were numbered of them, 32,500. These are the sons of Joseph, according to their families. Now, this is again an instance that sons is being used here loosely. It appears from 1 Chronicles 7 that Ephraim had 4 sons: Shutilah, which Numbers 26 mentions; Ezer and Elead, which Numbers 26 doesn't mention for reasons we'll get to momentarily; and Beriah. Shutilah formed one of the major families in Ephraim, while the other major families of the Ephraimites came from his family, namely Bered, who is Becher in Numbers 26, Tahath, who is Tahan in Numbers 26, and Eladah, which is likely the one who is named Eran in Numbers 26. The reason that Ezer and Elead didn't form major families is because they were killed by the men of Gath. This has confused many commentators because Ephraim was born in Egypt, as were all his descendants until the days of Moses. When could this event have taken place? Well, from the passage, Ephraim was still alive, so it must have been during the period when Israel lived in Egypt. But when and why did the children of Ephraim go into Gath, which is in the land possessed by the Philistines, and try to take cattle, resulting in the death of Ezer and Elead? The question, though, is, did they? The verse says the men of Gath who were born in that land killed them because they came down to take away their cattle. Who is the they in that passage? Everyone assumes it was the children of Ephraim, but I suggest it was the men of Gath who came down to Egypt, tried to steal some of Ephraim's cattle, and Ezer and Elead died during that fight to defend their cattle. This not only can fit with the grammar, but also with the time period, with Israel being in Egypt, and maybe even by this time nearing the beginning of their slavery, though the harsher slavery would come much later. Whatever the case, Ephraim mourned over his sons, but later he had sex with his wife and bore a son named Beriah. Now, Beriah wouldn't form a major family in Israel, but that doesn't mean he wasn't important, for we read on down through the names, and you will come to a man named Nun. This Nun was the father of Joshua, the man who led Israel into the promised land. 1 Chronicles 7 is the only passage that gives Joshua's full lineage back to Ephraim, even though we knew he came from that tribe early on in our studies. Ephraim would control land with Manasseh to their north and Benjamin and Dan to their south. Within their borders for the first 300 years or so stood the tabernacle, before it was captured during the days of Eli. And Ephraim would be a major political player in Israel for their entire existence up to the captivity. Sure, Judah would take the forefront in the days of David and Solomon, but they would lead the separation charge through Jeroboam, and the northern nation would sometimes be referred to as Ephraim because of it. So we have now covered 10 of the 12 tribes. We only have one more to go. Yes, my math is correct. To find out how, you'll have to come back and watch the next lesson. With that, our time is up for today. The Lord willing, we hope you'll join us for tomorrow's discussion of 1 Chronicles chapter 7, verses 30 to 40, as we continue our walk through the Bible, one verse at a time. Thank you for watching today's episode. We hope that you found it edifying and ask that you not only subscribe to our channel and podcast, but that you like and share this episode among your friends, so that the saving gospel of Jesus Christ can go out to the whole world.